Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bobble Pod. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about how to build a sporting brand. To some degree, we can also talk about how to build your brand from scratch with our guest, Warwick Andrews. But before I begin, as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're listening on any podcast streaming platform. And if on YouTube, hello, YouTube, don't forget to click on the subscription button and the bell notification to get updates on when we launch our episodes every Tuesday. So, how to build your sporting brand with Warwick Andrews. Welcome, Warwick Andrews.
Thanks. Good morning, Manny.
Thank you for coming on to our podcast. So, Warwick Andrews is the MD of Leeds Knights, which is a 2-year winning ice hockey club.
Yeah. We did a double last year. We won the league and we won the playoffs, which is great. In our second year, which is super. So it was a good start.
Yeah. And we're excited to announce, and we can say on this podcast that we are now going to sponsor Leeds Knights, which is why we're doing this kind of special edition, and we will have our logo on the back of the shirts. So there's no better feeling than seeing your logo on a sports brand. But we have good visions and good insights of where we want to go with this. But it's not about us, it's about building a sport brand. So let's tell the audience a little bit about who you are. How did you get to become the MD of Leeds Knights? Tell us your story quickly.
It's a quick story, really. I previously ran a sports consultancy. That was something I'd been running for sort of a dozen years. Worked in various different sports, which was good because you got a lot of variety, but hockey was always my sort of little secret pastime. Used to do it on my own. Used to watch a lot of hockey. Used to travel with Team GB. And when they built the rink in Leeds, I sort of made it a bit of a mission is try and get involved in some sort of way. And it was perhaps just on a contracted way, just to help out, make the business a success. I wanted to see some success in Leeds. From a conversation with the owner, Steve Nell, it turned into helping and advising for the first season of the Knights. And towards the latter end of that, Steve said that there was a bit more work that was needed. We tried to recruit during that year for some positions, but couldn't quite recruit the right sort of people. And then Steve said, would I like to do it full time? Which was a big change because I'd run my own business for, as I say, a good dozen years and had a lot of good times in different sports. This was about focusing on one organisation, very much in the leadership role. It transitioned after about 10 minutes of conversation. It was a yes. And I started about probably April last year, so as full-time as the MD.
Yeah, I remember we caught up last year, but we caught up when the season already started, and we talked about doing something for the new year. And we caught up, and you were chance meeting at a random networking event downstairs. And I was like, yeah, we do need to catch up, and we just did the deal there and then, didn't we?
Absolutely. That was probably one of the quickest and easiest deals I've done.
We had a few meetings before then. It was more like we knew what we wanted to do. It was more like just trying to get some time together. And I was like, look, you're going to struggle to get me down. Let's go ahead with these kind of specific elements. So why Leeds and why ice hockey?
Leeds is my adopted hometown. I've been here. I moved down here in 99. From the northeast, where I'd been involved in a little bit of hockey as a fan, and moved down to Leeds. And when they decided they were going to build a rink, it was like, okay, hockey is a sport. It's dependent on its facilities. You can't just go into the park and play. It's one of those elements where we need the facility to provide the opportunity. So Leeds is Leeds is a fantastic city, and it's a large city without an ice rink. One of the largest cities without an ice rink. So it's great that we've now got this facility, but putting something in place and making it a success for me it's a little bit like growing a business and having been really proud of something that you've grown from nothing, because there's no history of hockey in Leeds at all, to something that's really prosperous, and people sort of see Leeds Knights as synonymous with sport in Leeds. Because we're never going to compete with Leeds United, who are literally 200 yards down the road. They've been around for years. They've been in the Premiership, fine. They're in the second tier. Well, we're in the second tier. And for me, this is about putting another sporting brand in a big city like Leeds and making it something else that people can do. It's not just football. It's not just rugby league or cricket. You've now got something else as a professional sport that is a great opportunity for people to just come and have a fun night out. And you know what? They sometimes turn into avid hockey fans, but sometimes it's just a great night out for the family.
I can say I've been to one of the games, and it's just it's like watching the Mighty Ducks. You know what I mean? It really is. It's like a TV experience come to life. And it's like the fight kicked off as well. I was like, I'm proper into this. I was like, this is great. I was like, this is amazing. Gloves off, everything. They're going after each other. I don't even know who it was, but I was cheering him on because he was a Leeds Knights fan. He was a Leeds Knights player. So I was like, we've got to get into this. I was like, imagine our logo being in the back of that shirt whilst he take someone out on the rink. It'd be great. And then you were, kind enough to, I'd brought my nephew and my brother to let us give the Man of the Match awards at the end. And that was a great experience for my nephew to kind of go down and be there and rink, which was great. But so we've got Leeds, we've got ice hockey, we've got your story in terms of why you're at Leeds Knights. Now, strategy. Why do you need to build a sports brand, and where does one even start?
I think with any business, you need a strategy, at least some sort of vision where you think you are going to be, what you'd like to achieve. That was how I introduced myself with Steve as the owner and said, what's the aspiration as a hockey team? He's an ex-pro. He's got 20 odd years running another club. And for me, I spent time with sporting brands, sort of building visions and strategy for them to try and look ahead, rather than just looking year on year and sort of finding problems. So there was about building a vision, and I sort of had some ideas in my head that I shared with Steve, and that was important. And that probably was the catalyst for the relationship to sort of prosper and grow, because it was more about having an understanding of where we could fit within the Leeds landscape, but it gave us something to aim for and target and what we could do, because it wasn't just about putting a hockey team in a rink that not everybody knows about. Not everybody knows there's an ice rink in Leeds. It's on Ellen Road. It's on probably one of the most well-known roads in the whole of Leeds. And I still have people who say, where are you? And it's, it's on Ellen Road Strip. It's right next to the bridge, opposite the police station. We're on a relatively well-known area, yet there is still, so my role is about raising that awareness and saying this is where we want to be in 3-4 years' time. And that's how we started the whole piece around a strategy. And then it was piecing it together operationally, was how does that, you need to build a team, but around the team, we put housing around the players, we look after them, we give them good training opportunities. It's about getting businesses like yourself involved and saying, well, can we learn from each other where we can develop a relationship that allows us both to prosper around the sport? So for me, the strategy gives us a vision. It's not fixed. This is where we believe we're going to be, but it gives us a bit of direction moving forward, which is what I think is vital for any business, not just a sports team.
So you started with, where are you going to be 3-4 years time? Where does the club expect to be? Shared your visions with Steve, I'm guessing the owner of the team, and basically broke them back into key specific objectives, base points of what you want to build out, and take it from there, which is the standard strategy model for anyone to kind of think of. Is like, where are you now? Where do you want to be? What are the things you have to do to get to that point? Or what do you think you have to do? But I like what you just said there is, well, it's not a fixed point. It can move. It can be agile is the word I love to use. Is you've got to be agile, because you realize that things might change, the landscape might change. You might get more success, or it might come sooner. So other things and other strategies have to then be developed and thought about specifically. So it's really important to get that strategic element in place and putting it down on paper. People forget that. Well, I know we're talking about building a sports brand, but whether you're building a brand from scratch or anything anyway, you've got to start from a point of, well, let's get it down on paper, where we are and where we expect to be. And what do we need to do to achieve that? And then tick them off, because then how do you know you're progressing? And then how do you know if you've done one element, has it worked or not? So you'll probably be able to talk now about like how many things you have done, what's worked and what's not worked, for example.
And it's funny, you mentioned a couple of things on there that was really important. The concept I'd spoken with Steve about was a plan on a page. So I'd done a lot of strategy documents over my time, and people sort of write reams of work saying, this is what we're going to our strategy. Everybody just puts it on a shelf. So the concept we'd built prior to being involved with the Leeds Knights was a plan on a page. So it was, how do you concisely write where it is you think your vision's going to be in X number of years? The second bit you did is the paper bit, but it was the winning team. Our second objective was about being a winning team. A lot of sports teams want to win. There's only one winner at the end of it, and in our second year of existence, we've won something. So does that change our vision? Well, it makes us think differently about where we think we're going to be in another couple of years' time, because we've already achieved what we thought we might achieve after year 3, 4. So we kind of come ahead of ourselves. So for us as a club, it's about keeping that vision in line, and it was about winning team. Really important in all sport. A winning team attracts success and it attracts people in, and whether that's the public coming to watch and it's businesses wanting to be associated with it. But we also wanted to be about the best fan experience. So we've only got 4 objectives. It's really simple, but they're sort of like the guiding lights of where operationally we were trying to achieve. So yeah, winning team, we've done that. We've now got to repeat it. So does that change? Yeah, well, we've got to go through another recruitment exercise because players move, new players want to come in. We want to raise the bar, but other teams raise the bar. So the strategy that we have is it's there as a point that we want to achieve. Okay, it could shift again, right? What's the next level of success as a winning team? What's the best next level of match night experience? Because you've had that match night experience, but we always want to build on it. So there's 2 things that we've covered already that guide us in what we're doing. They don't dictate everything, but it guides us where we're going.
And how does that transpire into actual like marketing elements that you're actually specifically doing? We've gone through that, we've got a start and end point. We've got a vision. We started with a vision and we needed a winning team. Then it's match night experiences specifically. But you have people still saying to you, well, where are you based specifically? So it's brand awareness. Yeah. So what are you doing specifically in terms of like marketing elements within that?
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. Someone asked the other day is how did you start out from nothing? Because we generally, there's no history of hockey. And we kind of flooded the market. I'm going to say 2.5 years ago, there was kind of a flood on the market in the social media channels. It was hockey's coming to Leeds. This is what we're trying to do. Sorry, I keep dropping the ice hockey. Best drop the ice, but it's hockey. We flooded the market on the digital media just to sort of throw it out there and see if it sticks. And that was a starting point. Then we found we got some traction where people started following. Those followers then spread the word, and that helped. So it's been very organic at this point in time until last year when we started to recognize some of the trends that we'd seen in some of our data that we'd collected. So from a marketing point of view, it's then understanding what market's coming through the door. Are we understanding that market, and therefore can we refocus what we do from a marketing perspective? So we subtly shifted last year into doing more things on things like Instagram. We've got a really dynamic product. We've got guys hitting up against each other. It's a very fast sport. So it kind of sits well on a platform like Instagram. And that subtle shift then saw our growth in the Instagram market. And does that translate into people coming through the door? We actually can see that. We can see people who are coming to us because they're seeing things on the digital media that's sort of attracting them away from things. And we've done follow-up surveys. We've done a huge amount of data analysis to understand who's coming through the door and then follow up. Why are you here? What's the reason? Did you enjoy it? What was the experience like? What could we do better? We've spent 18 months trying to find out what our market is and then sort of moving our way around the channels to try and get into that market to provide them with information that you've never seen hockey before. Go on Instagram, go on our Twitter feed, go on Facebook, go on TikTok, go on YouTube. We've kind of flooded a lot of it.
And
now threads, yeah. There's threads to come in, and it's we have to move with that great element that probably wasn't there even probably 5 years ago in sport. There wasn't that exposure that you can get instantly, whereas now we're constantly looking and monitoring what are we doing on the digital social media so that we can find where we need to get to, because it's meeting what a market would like to do. As opposed to we've got 50,000 fans in Leeds, we'll just tell them to come to Ellen Road.
I guess it's going to be very customer-led, essentially in terms of the brand strategy, in terms of if the end user wants it, their content, information, getting elements. But it's great to see that, and this is valuable information if you're listening and watching, is that, look, everything they're doing is they're trying different things. They're introducing different channels. They're not making, snap decisions. Oh, it's not worked. They've given it time. They've gone back out to their customers. What brings you in? What do you like? And as a result, they're adapting that information and adding it to social channels and different digital media platforms. So it goes to show when you're building a brand, you've got to do many, many different things and test and A/B test multiple different platforms, channels, see what works, reutilize content, but you've got to listen to what the customer says. You can't just listen to what, unfortunately, the MD or anyone says, because it's going to be always going to be customer led, specifically, especially for e-commerce. It's going to always be customer led specifically. So, that's really, really good to see. We talked about relationships. You touched on about relationships. And I guess when it's a sports and it's a sporting brand, relationships are key. The relationship we as an agency built up, where we want to be your digital partner as well as be on the shirt to kind of guide and help with the digital marketing side of things with the Leeds Knights, because obviously that's great for us, relationship building, the people we meet. Why are relationships when building a brand from scratch or building a sports brand very important?
Maybe I'm biased on it, and this is maybe my value. I think a lot of business happens because of the interaction between human beings. And I'd probably take our example of, we probably met 18 months ago and it was a sort of talked about, but we weren't quite sure. And we went to a few events and saw each other and bumped in. My biggest approach or my most valuable approach is often to people, if you've never been to a hockey game, let me bring you to a hockey game. Come to the hockey game and come and experience it. That allows you to bond with my context, because I can talk hockey till the cows come home and everybody, whereas that's my view. What I want to find out is what's your view. So I always try and say to people, if you've never been, come along to the game, tell us what you think. Because that is the building of a relationship. They may turn around and say, it wasn't for us. And I'd go, so why wasn't it? Tell us why. What could we do better? What made it not the best experience for you? Because that's our guiding light. That's one of those 4 objectives we've got, being the best match in our experience. So how do we do that? Find out what the customer experiences and then say, right, how do we improve on it? So you're an example of how I like to do my sort of business, is get to understand the person who might walk through the door, and then that leads into working with Bobble Digital as a business now, because it's, I'll bring the lads on, I'll bring the family on, I'll bring yours was your family, wasn't it, when you first came? It now might be, I'll bring colleagues along, and then it'll be, we might bring some customers and clients along. And that's all about building relationships, because when you come to a hockey game, we're not going to sit you down on a white tablecloth with silverware. It's come and have a social night out, come and relax, come and enjoy. You might see a fight, but we don't advertise it. But it's one of those elements of, it's come and enjoy the experience of hockey for a couple of hours with us and then tell us all about it. And that's where I believe a lot of our strength is we can communicate through a sport that sort of brings people together.
Just if you do go, wrap up warm. It is cold. It is ice hockey. It's not normal hockey. I did wrap up and I was like, it is a little bit chilly in here. But what you realize is, as more people come in, you see the steam go up against the screens, and it gets naturally warmer, because there's like, at that point, what's the capacity?
We're filling it up, 2,000 people, just over 2,000 people.
Just over 2,000. So it's a 2,000 capacity seater. And when I was there, it was pretty much nearly packed. I'd probably say about 75%. And this was last year. So, I think, it all comes back to getting, and it's working when you see that you haven't got any seats spare. Basically, specifically. So what does the future look like for Leeds Knights, the brand? Tell us briefly.
We're in the off season. So a lot of that is recruitment of players, the new team coming in. Like any business, we wanted to keep a core of players. It's not just change every year just for the sake of it. There was some core players in there who had great skill sets, and I'd say that with every business is keep that core business, because the skill set you've got, you can build on that. There's a natural turnover in any sports team. Some players decide that it's not for them, or some tech players want to come in. So at the minute, our coach Ryan Aldridge is building the team for the start of the season. They'll be coming in August for some pre-season, and September we're away. For us, from a future point of view, I've still got that vision of sort of 2025 now, and it's looking at how do we connect with the business community and create our network of businesses associated with us, but what can we do for our businesses connected with us as well? You're being an example. We have the other team sponsors. It's how do we partner and work together so that we can mutually benefit, rather than just, we sponsor the Knights and that's pretty much it. We want it to be a community of people. And that's the vision we have, is building something that's slightly unique, a little bit different from what's perhaps been around in Leeds for a long time. But that's where we would like to be in a couple of years from now.
Yeah, and the same thing has to happen with the community side of things. Actually, the fans building more of a fan base, fan community, fan forums, whether it's an app or something like that. There's a lot of things you can do. Once you build your following up, it's how you nurture them because they're the life and blood of the team. The businesses are with the sponsorships and obviously the money that we put in, but it's the ticket sales, it's the merchandise sales, it's the food and drink sales on the nights, etc. All that plays a part into everything we're doing. So, what advice would you give right now to other companies trying to build a brand from scratch? What would be the key thing?
Listen to your customers.
Yeah.
Find out what the customers actually want rather than perhaps what you think they want. Is listen to that, reach out, find out the information. Continually look to what you can improve, but don't rush. I think one of the things we've learned through doing the strategy is let's put something in place and let it run and see and monitor it. Keep our eyes on it, test whether it works. You mentioned the A/B testing. That we did a lot of that last year. Everything we went out with was A/B testing, seeing what the reaction was and being able to mine that data so we could understand it. And it's not a put a team out there and just let it run. We are constantly monitoring that on a week-to-week basis, which is really dynamic because every week you're sort of doing the next right. What can we do better? What have we learned? What do we didn't build on? So it is a very dynamic business, but don't think we're unique. Every business is like that. Every business sort of reacts to where markets go. So stay in touch with the market, keep on top of that market, but also have that vision in mind and looking ahead, because that'll be the sort of the direction that you're going to go.
And you'll be surprised to hear this. No, not every business will do that. I still think it's a rare commodity when you have businesses and we talk to businesses and we talk about brand versus performance and building it out and letting things run, giving it time to do things. It's never an overnight success with marketing or digital marketing. And you've done everything right. And this is why, I want you to come on and share your story, because it's like a lot of that has to come with the fact that you persevered, you waited, you listened and got feedback. You didn't just think, I know my product. And a lot of MDs and owners do this. Yes, you know your industry and your product better than everyone, but you know who else knows your product? Your customer, because they're the one who use it. And they might not use it in the way that you promote it out to be specifically. That's where you've got to engage with your loyal customers, your new customers. Why did you consider us? What was it? And more often than not, you'll be surprised with what you actually find. It's not what you perceive it to be. Yeah. And you can't keep doing the same thing again and again and again and just expecting the same results again and again and again. You've got to be adaptive. You've got to be agile. You've got to think out of the box. Economic elements will change, but I like that. And I want the listeners and the watchers to think that be persistent, give it time, don't have that knee-jerk reaction to a strategy. If you've taken all that time and resource to build a strategy, or you've come to an agency who's developed a strategy for you, don't then 2 months later tell the agency to change their strategy because you haven't seen the ideal results you want to do. As long as you can see positivity and growth, that's the key thing. We had a chain of local stores come to us recently, and set clear targets of how many online sales you want to achieve, per week through physically as well as online coming in through delivery. And in the first couple of weeks, I think we did 15, and that was in May. I think in all of June, we did around about 91. Halfway through July, we're already well over 100. But the question always comes back with, why aren't we at 250 yet? It's not that simple. You can't just have a number in mind or a goal in mind, expect to achieve it like a bullet train. It's going to take time. You've got to, especially if you're building something from scratch and you don't know, and you've got to really understand it. So take your time, listen to people. Remember, we employ people because they're experts to tell us what to do. We don't employ people so we can tell them what to do. If I work with a client and they agree with my strategy and they start telling me what to do to the work that I'm meant to be doing, then I'm like, well, why did you hire me? You don't need me. Do it yourself then. Specifically. I highlighted this a while back with a post from Lewis Kemp in terms of why you should, and then I talked about it on an actual podcast in terms of why you don't need a digital marketing agency. Remember, be prepared, have a brief, have a strategy in place, follow up on it. Final thing, just before we wrap up, what's the one takeaway you want the audience to leave with based on everything you've said today?
From a business point of view, have patience. Have patience in what you do have the right people involved, get the right people involved, because it's often about the relationships you have through the people. So you may have the most skilled people in your business, yet actually that might disrupt where you want to go as a team towards the vision. So sometimes you have to balance those things out. And I think so a lot of it for me is get the right people around you and focus on that business goal that you want to achieve. And that might be a vision. People talk about objectives and outcomes and various other things. But for me, set that vision of where you want to be and keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. Don't fix it and say we can't change it, because the world changes. We change every week with what we do. And I think that people will, if you've got the right people around you, that will drive the business in the right direction, as long as you're cohesive and you've got a good team working together.
Okay, you might have seen a little bit of edit if you're on YouTube. The thing is, because randomly while we're recording, we can hear some, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a chainsaw going on in the background somewhere, and we weren't aware of this. But thankfully, to Warwick, we're coming to the end of our podcast, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your insights and sharing that experience with our listeners and our viewers. I want to thank everyone for listening into this episode today. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe if you are listening to us on any kind of podcast stream platform, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and click on the bell notification to get updated on weekly episodes coming out. We've got a lot of exciting guests coming up, a lot of exciting talks coming up with our weekly episodes. So we want to hear your feedback. Don't forget to tag us at Bobble Digital if you've been listening and want to share your feedback. Comment on YouTube in the comment section, and use the hashtags #Mr. Bobble, #AskBobble, and #BobblePod to give you feedback in terms of what you want to hear, what you want to get involved with in terms of the podcast. So thank you very much, Warwick, and thank you to everyone listening. We'll catch you in the next episode next week.